Hey everyone, so today this video is taking a slightly different course from the videos I would usually put together, definitely away from cars, gaming, etc. Although this one does hit more on the topic of life experiences, things we get up to, thoughts I've had, things I've been up to. And it begins with about 10 years ago. I think it's about 10 years ago now. I was around 21, 22 when I started this. I started writing a book. Not so much a book. To be honest, I thought I'd written more. Now, having just reviewed it, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are only 8 sections to it, which by any measure isn't a lot. And each section is, well, it can't be more than a couple hundred words. Some longer, some shorter. You know, there's a little bit of variety. So basically, throughout these next few videos, what I want to do is go back and read some of these things. Like I said, the earliest ones from about 10 years ago, the most recent one, let me see if I can actually remember when that was. Okay, so the most recent one's about 5 to 6 years. So some of these thoughts I'd written down over the space of around 4 to 5 years. Not to say that I was constantly writing, it was more so I would write a piece down, some time would pass, be it weeks, months, or in some cases years, and then I would think back to this document I have, and then I would write some more, etc. Yeah, and it's basically something that I wanted to put together so that when I'm older, well, not so much when I'm older, but sometime in the future when I've had different experiences, once I've got different views on certain things in life, that I can read back on this, reflect on it, and actually make some comments on my previous ways of thinking. Maybe I suppose that's one way of learning and constantly developing yourself, is analysing how you went about doing anything in the past, seeing how you can do it better now, and learning from it. So the first section I wrote is titled First Steps. I suppose that can be applicable to anything. Anything you want to start and do, you have to take the first step to do it, to get anywhere. So this is composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs in the closing sentence, so it shouldn't take too long. I'm going to read through it with hopefully good diction. I do tend to stumble on my words, being tongue-tied and all, and bilingual. I think that more than anything makes me trip up. But yeah, so here it is. Let's have a read through and then pick apart what I've got. First steps. Pick a point on the page and start drawing a line. Draw some more lines, join them together, and eventually you'll have designed something new, something different. But what exactly is it? Well, that all depends on your situation or the task set ahead of you. It's a practice often forgotten amongst, well, let's face it, everyone. This particularly annoyed me in school in subjects such as woodwork, design and technology, and graphics design. Very well. It's important for a teacher to show by example how to perform a certain task using a supposedly proven method. But did you notice how the miniature handcrafted baseball bat shaped object that you've just spent 2 hours on was far inferior in quality to one or two other students' final products? No, just me then. It didn't take me long to inspect what I had. It didn't take me long to inspect what I had created and formulate a slightly better way of forming this 1 by 1 inch, I should say 1 inch by 1 inch stick of timber into a borrower's sized piece of sporting equipment. But that's all we had time for that day, to file down and sand a piece of wood in the way dictated to us. What didn't help was that our woodwork teacher also happened to be our ever so strict headmaster, with whom no one argued. The problem for me was that maybe for some people this particular way of shaping a piece of wood may have been the perfect starting point. But for me, I needed something else. I needed a little more information or brief education on what I was working with, both tool and material wise. It's not been very long since I realised that I am mainly and sometimes only... Sorry, I misread that completely. It's not been very long since I realised that I learn mainly and sometimes only by seeing. Because after all, seeing is believing, and for me I tend to not believe until I see. So, I followed the instructions given, used the tools to shape the material in the way described to us, only to obtain a near enough carbon copy of the instructional end product. I'm just going to stop there a second. Some of my grammar and sentence structure 10 years ago already is not good. That's one thing I'm picking up on, aside from the actual topic at hand. I'm fairly certain if I can rewrite this now, it would flow a little better. Carrying on. Only to obtain a near enough carbon copy of the instructional end product, equally low in quality. I was at a young age, so anything new presented to me, I just figured that whatever is shown to me entails the be-all end-all way of doing things, whatever that meant doing. Scroll down a bit. Focusing back on my newly formed piece of art, you're probably wondering what it is that I did to make sound so awful. Again, sentence structure not very well. Imagine, if you will, a baseball bat, comma missing there, divided into three evenly split parts, one of which comprises the handhold area, the grip, and the rest is what I'll call the whacking area, the bat. You know, the contact patch, the big end. Now my little 10-inch or so long mini bat was more made up of two parts, not evenly split, say 45-55, slightly off kilter. I couldn't find the ruler type mess. Now imagine a full-size baseball bat or baton with said dimensions. It just wouldn't work. The supposed to be bigger and fatter contact patch lacks the momentum in a swing, and it just looks downright awkward. I forgot an important point about our little woodwork experiment. The little baseball bat looking batons were not baseball bat looking at all. Instead of this smooth handhold area, or the smooth grip, you should say, they were meant to be ribbed for a comfortable grip. Fair enough, but this was my downfall. Where it all went wrong for me was that I'd used the full breadth of the back of the curved file to shape the finger holds. So that's a little ribbed part on like a traditional police bobby's baton, if you can imagine that. You do the maths. Missing. Going for an American approach here, do the math. You do the maths. So then. The stick is roughly 10 inches long. The average file is 1 inch wide, and you would need at least 4 grooves for your fingers to grip it comfortably. With slight spacing between these grooves, you end up with a 45-55 split of what could have been a very nice looking mini baton or baton to put on display somewhere amongst my selection of toys, many of which were broken for reasons I shall explain at another point. Oh yeah. That baton was binned not long after it was created, solely for the above mentioned reason. I couldn't have my yet to be developed abilities be portrayed by my first attempt at putting tool to timber. Is that it? That's it. So that's it for the first section. Jesus, yeah. So looking back at how obviously I behaved and reacted to making something for the first time out of wood, that's definitely the wrong approach to take. You know, you shouldn't discard your first attempt at something just because it's not as good as what you've seen, because I think a lot of people tend to judge maybe their first or early efforts at something, or compare their early efforts against refined efforts of others. What's another way of explaining this? Let's say you've got two athletes, or athletes. You've got two athletes on a field. One of them in his late 20s, seasoned, well-rounded, can do something very well without much instruction or input. Another one, let's say late teens, still learning the ropes, unable to do something without being told a few minor instructional steps. So let's say you pitch these two athletes against each other on, say, the triple jump, a very tricky Olympic event, if you ask me. A whole hop, skip, and a skip again, and a jump, and a I don't know what quite that's meant to be. I never got it. I still don't understand it. I really envy anyone with the ability to understand it who does understand it, because it's just crazy. So yeah, you've got two athletes. One of them seasoned, knows what he's doing. Another one, maybe it's his first attempt at the triple jump. Seasoned athlete runs, hops, skips again, and then jumps. Not a bad attempt. New athlete tries to imitate with a little bit of instruction, maybe cocks up the skip, or maybe doesn't get as far in the final jump, or whatever. Now if that new athlete, let's call them the long jumpers, if that new long jumper judges himself or herself on that very first attempt against someone who can well be called a seasoned pro, that's wrong, because no one is a pro from the get-go. You know, it takes a lot of practice. Practice makes perfect, after all. And you know, not that just being older means you're better at something, but the obvious gap there is that you've got, say, one person who's possibly late 20s and one person who's in late teens. All that means is, provided the older one of the two has actually applied themselves for the last 10 years, has he got an advantage? It could well be the other way around, where the younger one of the two has been practicing for 5 years and the older one of the two has only been practicing for 1 year, and you know, it'd be a completely different story. But it's all about applying yourself and then not judging yourself on your first efforts. You know, it's good to fail initially, because you have to learn for yourself what not to do or how not to do something, and then from that move on up and perfect it. And I think that's something that I wish I'd known when... How old would I have been? Let me think. So I was probably around 10 years old when this physically happened, this in woodworking class, when we were shaping these little bats. And I've made several since. In fact, I made an actual nice one that I'm very proud of on a lathe. I don't actually have it to hand. I think it's in storage somewhere in a box, packed away, so I don't have any space to put it on display. But yeah, I've learned from having done it the wrong way, and now, you know, if I was to pick up some wood and some tools now, I can still make something that's 100 times better than my first attempt. Now, the only thing that I'm thankful for is that subconsciously I have learned from these failed attempts. The one thing that I wish I'd known earlier was that I should have kept that first example as a reminder that it's good to fail, it's good to cock up, it's good to not be the best. You know, because if you think doing anything is only worth it if you're the best, then nothing's worth doing really, because you're never going to find any joy in doing anything. Because if you constantly think that you have to be the best to do anything at all, you're just going to keep failing at everything. You know, you're going to start something, you're going to try it once or twice, you're going to see that you're not the best, and then you're going to give up. You can move on to another thing, and eventually you're just going to have tried a million different things and never refined one thing. And what you should do is try something, regardless of what happens. Ignore the scrutiny, ignore the failures, learn from it, move on, move up, try again. You know, as Finnegan said, onwards, upwards and inwards.
Onward, upward and inward. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it for now, until the next video, where I'll be looking at another, well, it might not be the exact next video, but in another video I'll be looking at the next section. I think this will make the first of a few videos titled Life. Obviously previously I had boredom and focus. So boredom, there were the 10 episodes. They weren't really episodes, they were just 10 random videos of me talking rubbish. Whereas focus was a bit more, as the title suggests, focused. This is more about life and learning and getting on with things. So yeah, I'll catch up with you soon.